I'm Riifushi, and today I'll be designing a pair of dog soldier siblings for my game. If this is your first time here, welcome. Basically, I'm working on a game as the artist and eventually programmer with my friend Rita, who is responsible for the world building and game design. And this is the second video in my art devlog series. As for two quick announcements, after the first video, a lot of you wanted Rita to start a blog about the game. So our site is now live at riifushi-game.com. She'll be posting about world building and design concepts every so often, so if that interests you, please feel free to take a look. Second, quite a few people in the audience emailed me wanting to help out with the game. It makes me really happy that people are interested in the game already and offering to help, so thank you. For now, we're still working on concepts, but we'll reach out if it makes sense to. Anyway, on to the designs. But before getting into the dog people, I'll be going over some updates from the previous video. In that video, I designed Natalija and her gun like this. To summarize, she is a noble and a merchant. She's cheerful, but her mannerisms suggest a tad bit of madness. She's also one of the 4 main playable characters. There was a ton of feedback and suggestions for her, but I decided on 3 major changes. So I asked about whether red or green suited her hair better. There were so many responses for this one, mostly saying green or red, or to make them twins, and I can see where each of you are coming from. However, I will stick with my heart. It will be green, but the inside of her hair will be red, and on the right is how it looks when it's tied up. I know some people said it definitely wouldn't mix well and felt really strongly about it, including my mom, but I think these shades match her eyes and look. It's unrealistic, yes, but also quite interesting. As for her gun, a few of you noticed some functional mistakes that I made. Basically, the magazine should be lined up with the ejection port and the bolt should be parallel with the barrel. I also added a rear sight for aiming. Anyway, let's jump right into today's topic, the doggos. In this world, there are many different races. Natalija is a human, or commonly referred to as the featureless, as they generally lack any identifying feature to them like animal tails or ears. They're similar to the humans from our world. The dog siblings we will be designing are Torniaks, which Rita describes them as a canine group of people notable for their dog-like ears, hailing from the city of Tor. Despite enduring decades of war and conflict, they are a hardy people, along with their self-deprecating sense of humor. An ability to laugh at oneself allows them to endure great hardship after all. As a common joke amongst them goes, born too late to fight a war for Tor, born too early to fight a war for Tor, born just in time to fight a war for Tor. Before designing the characters, I first wanted to define the Torniaks features. But what the hell kind of a name is Torniak, you might be thinking? Well, that's because they're based on the Torniak dog breed. So I researched how they look so that I could create a general idea of what these people would look like. When drawing them, I had a realization that all my characters have the same face. If you've noticed, I only draw girls and usually around late teens to early 20s. So I thought, if I'm going to draw an entire group of people, then they shouldn't all be 20-year-old girls. So I decided to draw a 2x2 with how they would generally look. I wanted them to have brown fluffy hair and each person would have different highlights in their hair. I also wanted them to have dog eyes, cute thick eyebrows that dogs usually have, and a visible canine. I was really happy with this because I thought it was really cute. So I sent it off to Rita and our friends. Rita asked, why are all their hair the same color? And I countered, well, it's not my fault the dogs are all brown, okay? And so Rita sends me this image. Okay. So I decided to make each person have variations of these fur colors. After designing the Torniaks, I moved on to our second playable party member, Jevo. While I show my old concept art, Rita describes him as a taciturn young man hailing from Tor, has little in the way of words, but often can be easily swayed at the promise of money. His life before his arrival at the frontier allows him to make money off dangerous and often unsavory work, but he himself does not care. Along with his sister Sara, they were formerly soldiers part of a larger mercenary group. Following a particularly chaotic battle that resulted in the loss of feeling in Sara's lower limbs, they both deserted, attempting to live out the rest of their days away from the battlefield. So to be honest, starting off, I had no clue what I was doing. I'm not very proud of this first iteration since I had very little direction for myself. I basically tunnel visioned into mercenary dog boy, and I started drawing a bunch of outfits off the top of my head while looking at random mercenary outfits. The thing is, I don't think any of them look terrible. I think some of them might even look alright, but they do look like generic mercenary outfits that don't say too much about his character. I started wondering, how did I design Natalija again? I remember the process being a lot smoother, and I had a lot of confidence that I could get these done quicker as well, since I had already designed a character before. Also, I took a short break in between, and it was great, but I subconsciously put a bit of pressure on myself to work faster. After getting frustrated with why I couldn't come up with anything I liked, I asked Rita for advice, and we had a conversation where she told me, "You keep drawing and drawing, yet it does not seem like you're saying anything." She continued saying that creative work can only be achieved when your mind is liberated, and then you can convey the human experience. So it got me thinking about my art and why I draw. Based on what Rita said, I have a theory that in order to do good character design or world building, you have to understand experiences other than your own. So you have to come to terms with yourself first, and only then can you begin to understand other people's experiences. Everyone has their own life and perception of it, so it's quite literally putting yourself in other people's shoes, and you have to see it for yourself. Creative work cannot be forced by just sitting and drawing all day. I felt like I kept trying to be productive and hardworking, but it became more difficult when I couldn't come up with anything that I liked. It requires a lot of understanding of things to know what you want to say, and then being able to use your technical skill to visualize those ideas. So, what is it that you want to convey? That comes before any sort of technical skill because, well, anyone can learn technical abilities. The saddest kinds of arts are the ones that say nothing. So I decided to toss away my idea of how long a design should take and just play around with what I found interesting to me. Starting over, in order to design his outfit, I needed to know his and his sister's combat styles. Rita explains that Orphans of War like Jevo and Sara have long been employed by various armed forces on the continent. Bioengineered to have their nerves to supplement spellcasting and boost physical enhancement, they are capable of inhuman feats at the cost of burning out their nerves. It's not so much that they were selected due to their age, but more so, most of them die before they reach adulthood as a result of burnt out nerves. These powers are pale imitations of the mythical knights of the church. Because they have been bioengineered, my first thought was thinking of making them cyborg-ish, with mechanical parts sticking out of them. But I decided to draw Jevo as a human, like you see here, because of what Rita suggested. Wouldn't it be more compelling if these Orphans of War were just like you and me? She explained that they could be walking down the street just like anyone else, but they are completely different due to what they've witnessed. She also mentioned that it's more difficult to inflict harm to humans compared to robots. Like, you wouldn't mind punching your printer when it doesn't print out your papers, but it would be a little more difficult if it had a cute robot smile, wouldn't it? So it's also beneficial combat-wise if they appear just as humans. So I wanted his design to reflect his bioengineered body and abilities as someone that fights with his life on the line. Because of this, I started drafting an idea for Jevo's skill tree and abilities, similar to Natalija's gun. Now, this section might be a bit scientific and a bit scientifically wrong, so if there are any neurologists watching, now is the time to comment. I decided that the bioengineered section would be his nervous system, which includes the brain, spinal cord, and nerves that branch off from the spinal cord. Nerves are responsible for sensing information, like hearing a meow, and sending signals to move the body, like turning around in response. In Jevo's case, select nerves in his body have been swapped out or modified with bioengineered ones, boosting his abilities, like spellcasting or his strength. He also has an implant located on his spine, acting as a control center. For context, each section of the spine mainly controls a specific section of the body. The general correlation being that the higher up the vertebrae, it affects parts of the body that are also higher up. So for Jevo, the implant can access each section of the spine, but only one section can be overloaded at a time. Otherwise, the toll on the body is too high for constant use. But the specifics of the nerves and effects are for us to design and for you to find out at a later time. Therefore, the concept of his design revolves around his abilities. I wanted all the clothing to be tied tightly to his body with little skin showing, so that both the clothes and skin wouldn't tear off if he were to react and move at inhuman speeds. To do this, as you can see, I just slapped on a ton of belts and a pair of goggles on him, and this definitely won't prevent all his physical injuries, but you know, it's better than nothing. The scarf, well, I'm a sucker for scarves, and I thought it would be pretty cool trailing behind him when he moves fast. That's pretty much it. And he also has 2 daggers, which I haven't designed yet, one being his and one being his sister's. So now we move on to his sister, Sara. She is not a playable character, but she's central to Jevo's story and his motivation. Rita describes her as a quiet girl that is being taken care of by Jevo. They are both formerly comrades in arms, but she lost the use of both legs after both nerves eventually burnt out. She secretly wishes to die on the battlefield with her other comrades, but lives on for her brother's sake. So I also struggled when I started to design Sara, for the same reason when designing Jevo. I wasn't too clear on her character, but I wanted to get some designs done quickly. So for these sketches, I initially wanted her to wear a long dress, for not much other reason than she or Jevo would prefer to cover her legs after her injuries. And since Jevo deeply cares for her, he shows it by dressing her up in cute clothes. For another angle of these initial sketches, I leaned more into the bedridden, tired, and depressed look. In one of the previous sketches, you may have noticed that she has a wheelchair. But after discussing with Rita and our friends, we decided that they're not well off by any means, so they wouldn't be able to afford a luxury like a wheelchair. This means that she can only be at home, so I gave her overgrown, messy hair as if she hadn't cut it in years. Again, these don't look bad by any means, and even I wouldn't mind wearing some of these dresses. But when talking about compelling character designs, I want to convey what makes her unique through her outfits and style choices. Originally, I had decided that because her legs are paralyzed and she's living for the sake of her brother, that she would look weak and like she's dying. But as I was showering one day, I thought, a character cannot just be described with one word, like depressed. I remember Rita explaining that Sara fought more aggressively and burnt her nerves out, and that's why she became crippled faster than Jevo. So far, I've thought of 2 conflicting traits for each character that makes them just slightly more interesting. Natalija was cute but insane, and Jevo's was annoyed but cute. So for Sara, I decided on depressed yet badass, like a person who used to be extremely cool but somehow became a shell of themselves. The remnants of them being cool and indifferent should still be in there somewhere. So when you see her, I want people to be like, oh god, she looks so cool, but what happened? But what does being a badass look like anyway? After researching some cool girls, I have a theory that they could be literally wearing anything and still be extremely cool. It lies in their eyes, their posture, and facial expression, like a silent sureness of someone that doesn't get easily bothered. So that brings us to my final design. She's basically wearing a zip-up blanket. It's one of those blankets that you bring when camping in the winter, but it's also amazing when you're at home. Speaking from personal experience, for her hair, imagine all of the messy hair from the previous sketch but tied up into a huge messy bun. And finally, you might also notice the big rose on her hair, which I'll leave it up to your interpretation. So now I have 3 different character designs floating around. So this time, I decided to draw them interacting with each other so I can get a sense that they're in the same world together. While I do so, I'll be talking about my final thoughts this time around. Hello, this is future Riifushi reporting 2 weeks after my initial voiceover. I talked about my art block in this video, but even after I finished the designs, the video still dragged on a lot longer than I expected. Subconsciously, I think I realized that I tried to hit an internal deadline of 1 video per month. So when that deadline approaches and I feel like the video is nearly done, I get a bit anxious about finishing it. Plus, this time I was planning on visiting my friends over the weekend for some Halloween spooky events, so I wanted to be finished before I left. And at that time, I just needed to finish the final illustration, add in sound effects, and make the thumbnail. So the night before I had to leave for my trip, I spent the entire night working on the illustration, so I had to push everything else back for the next morning. But as I was adding in sound effects the next day, I finally cut my losses. It felt so frustrating, like I really wanted to finish it so that I could enjoy my trip without worrying about it. So after admitting my defeat, I just laid on my bed without anything left to do for the first time in a while. And I thought, I've always wanted YouTube to be a place where I can have fun and post videos that I'm proud of rather than just pushing out a video for the sake of it just because it's almost a month. And I know logically it's not like I'm going to die or like anyone's going to be sad because I didn't release a video, but I still feel a bit frustrated when I can't hit my internal deadline. Besides that, I thought, damn, I shouldn't have ignored the rest of my life trying to finish this video, because not only do I have no video, I wasn't able to exercise or play games or enjoy my life. But because of this, I added this point to my personal notes. Upkeep all main aspects of your life. They're on your schedule for a reason. Don't let one project derail it. So basically, every time I sort out something in my personal life, I'll add a note so that I'll remember it for the future. So after sulking a bit, I ended up having a really fun trip. And during it, I added another note. Take life by the balls and twist them. Take life by the balls and twist them. A world of no limits, pure dreams, and insanity. Okay, I guess this one is kind of embarrassing. But for this one, basically, I just wanted to give a big fuck you to the sky and say, the sky's the limit. And if not physically, at least I can draw my imagination on paper. And here is the final result! I wasn't really happy with the original art that I did, so I ended up redoing the illustration anyway, which is the one you see here, and I'm really happy with how this one turned out. I think it looks pretty cool. I also drew this one for Natalija and Jevo. I thought it'd be a funny dynamic since Natalija's basically a rich girl trust fund kid, while Jevo's always working hard for a bit of money. Anyway, as always, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below, and if you have extra time and a pair of eyeballs, Rita also wrote a companion blog to this video, so you can go read Rita's blog on how she designed Jevo and Sara. Other than that, thank you for watching.